This is the beautiful Janeta Jackson, who did such a wonderful performance of Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, which is now playing at Cape Fear Regional Theater in Fayetteville. It's worth the drive, I promise you, especially on a nice fall night when it's not too windy. It's a lovely performance and a little bit different than for Triangle audiences who saw Lady Day last year at Interact. Um, it's a little bit of a different vibe. And so we're going to talk about that because it's really interesting how you can see the same play twice and take away totally different things. And y'all know I love Connie's performance. So this isn't to compare Connie's performance. Her performance was wonderful. Connie McCoy is a beloved performer here in the Triangle, but Janetta is the reigning Billie Holiday. So
I've never heard it put so eloquently.
so we both have something in common. We're from Miami, Florida, but you are a transplant like I am. You're based in Charlotte. How long have you been a North Carolinian?
I don't know if I started calling myself a North Carolinian just yet. But since 2017, when I came here to do Mary Poppins, I came to Charlotte to do Mary Poppins, not Fayetteville.
Oh, okay. Okay, and I love that. That's another fantastic role. Were you the title character? I think
I
I
don't,
read somewhere.
yeah, I did it with Children's Theater of Charlotte. I had done work with them before, and I moved away to work with another theater. And when I came back to Charlotte to perform that role.
I love that. I love that show. Did you get to fly?
I I did get to fly. It was beautiful.
um, Now, this performance of Lady Day, you dedicated in your bio to your mom. I'm so close to my mother as well. Can you talk to me about how her love and support informed who you are as a performer and woman, how you approach this role?
Yes, I can talk about my mama all day. So I'm gonna try to keep it short. My mother, her name was Janice Jones Jackson, and she was always her along with my dad and the rest of my immediate family, always very supportive of my dreams and any of my endeavors. Like whatever I wanted to do, they were like, "Baby, you can do it. What program are we going to tonight? What show are you doing this time?" And they traveled around the world to see my performances. But my mom, she was just such an amazing woman. I don't even think there's enough words to describe just the incredible being that she was. She my sisters like to say that she loved and laughed loudly because my mom had this amazing laugh, but
Mhm.
she showed her love and appreciation through her actions, and she was always so proud. And she was just the best example of not just a woman that I know, but literally the best example of a human that I've ever met. And I would say in this pertaining to this particular production, Billie Holiday, she said that she couldn't sing without gardenias in her head. That was kind of her calling card or her gimmick. And my mom's favorite flower is the gardenia.
Mm.
So I felt so connected to the show. And we're in a season right now where gardenias aren't really blooming, but right after I got to Fayetteville, I was parking my car somewhere and I was like, I smell something. And I looked around and there was one big, beautiful gardenia all alone on this bush. And I was like, that just had to be my mom showing me that she was here with me.
I
Yeah.
love that so much. Did she, what kind of music did you listen to in your house? Were they in the arts or performers at all or?
They were not. My dad he used to manage a funk band. But that was like well before he was married and had kids. But my father is still he's a pastor. So I grew up in a household where we listened to gospel music. But my dad was a huge, he loved Motown. So I also grew up on some like Motown. When I was a kid, kids would pick on me because I didn't know any of the latest songs. I knew Patti LaBelle and Diana Ross and the Stylistics and the Temptation. Like that was the kind of stuff that I listened to growing up. A little bit of jazz here and there, but I always had a love for music. So I just loved finding my own way and listening to different genres as I grew up. Mm-hmm.
Well, and you played this role twice. We talked about it a little bit before we went on. You took on the role of Billie Holiday at the Actors Theater in Charlotte, um, back in January, kind of February timeframe of this year. So, what did you learn about the character, about this woman during that performance that you brought to this production?
Wow. I learned so much about Billie Holiday. I already knew of her. I knew about her. Had listened to her music. I knew a bit of her history. I mean, if you haven't seen Lady Sings the Blues, it kind of tells the story, but you know, in a Hollywood type of way. So you really just get a smidgen of it, and not really the nitty gritty. So when I delved into this show, it was more of doing some more research on her and listening to interviews that she'd done, listening to interviews that some of her friends or people that knew her have done. And listening to music that is not written in the show, listening to other songs that she had written in other ways that she sang, and just kind of hearing, because she talks about, I have to sing the way I feel. So when she wrote songs, some of them are kind of sad, and some of them are just like, oh, Billy. Like, what were you thinking? But that was how she was feeling. So you have to listen to that to get an idea and a feel of, you know, what she was going through at that time, and also to get more of a sense of who she was. And bringing all of that into this production with other creatives involved, just I think it just kind of enhanced it in a sense, because I feel like if you watch a musical multiple times, like I saw Hamilton, what, 5 times, and I noticed something different every single time. And I think that's the same as doing a show. You learn something different, and you leave with something more, you know, each time that you do it, because it's a different experience.
What's really interesting is I told you, and I wrote in my review, I saw this production last fall, I guess it was last year, at Interact at North Raleigh Arts and Creative Theater. And it's funny as an audience member when you see a show multiple times, because you do see something new. You do pick out something new. And I feel like in this production, maybe, and this could be just my projecting it on this production, but that the director and you and the people involved really honed in on how her life story really resonates to what's happening now. Because I almost felt like the entire first part of the show in this production was really leading up to this stunning moment of strange fruit. And then from there, it became more of this statement piece, which I kind of loved because the script is all over the place a little bit. So how do you see it? Am I just projecting that? Like, is that in my imagination?
No, I don't think you're projecting it, because you know, art is it's whatever your perception of it is, you know, like whatever that means to you. But for me, Strange Fruit does become that huge statement piece because that was one of the biggest songs of her career. And it was a statement. It was kind of a defiance during the time that it was written and performed. But in this particular production, I feel that because Billie's just a little chatterbox and she wants to just tell her story, that sometimes some of the things that are leading up to that moment, I think the writer did a good job in trying to prepare the audience for that moment, because Billie drops a lot of nuggets. She drops a lot of hints leading up to some of these harder stories. You know, she talks about things that happened when she was a teenager. She makes mention of her mom, the Duchess, before she goes into a full-on monologue about it. She makes mention of little things that have happened to her as a Black woman, not just a Black woman performer, but just as a Black woman in that time. She talks about those things. And one of the things that I found, because this is 2020 and it feels like 5 years. But because this is 2020 and not only are we in a pandemic, but this has been a year of such constant social unrest. I feel that, you know, if an audience member sees this show one time, like they don't have time to see it 5 times. I don't want them to have to wait to see it the second and third time to get it. I don't want them to miss these moments, because I want them to see that these moments are still important today in 2020. These same things that were happening to Billie Holiday. This play takes place in 1959. So she's just telling the stories of the things that have been happening to her since the 30s. You know, and the fact that some of those things are still happening and still relevant to what people of color are experiencing today. It's like, as an actor, you really want to portray that, but as a human being, like, I want people to get that, to really get those moments.
That your rendition of Strange Fruit is so emotional that anybody who doesn't get that moment is sleeping because they fell asleep because it's so breathtaking. I told you earlier when we talked, it just left me on the floor like, okay, I'm just gonna have to pick up the pieces from this.
I think they get the Strange Fruit. I think Strange Fruit is like, I've been building up this snowball for a while. But yeah, like leading up to that, I want to talk about this one particular point specifically because of the season that we're currently in. There is a point in the production where she talks about, she's making a joke about it. That's what she does. She has this passive conversation, but she makes a joke about, oh, I wonder why no coloreds work for the government. Oh, well, I guess not enough of us voted. And sometimes people will chuckle at that because they get it, but sometimes I'm surprised. One, I know some people might be silent because that might be something uncomfortable to even acknowledge. But sometimes I can see the people's faces and it's one of those moments where, like, I don't think they get it. And so I'm so like prompted to say, you know, we can't vote, you know, and that's when you'll get the faces like, oh yeah, like they couldn't vote. And the reason I think that that's so important is because of the season that we're currently in. We're approaching an election, you know, and I want everybody to recognize that not that long ago, people of color were not allowed to vote. And here we are with the opportunity to make our voices heard because so many people could not, and that we need to take advantage of that opportunity. Yeah.
I love that. So is that line, so you're improving? I mean, did you improv?
Yeah,
Because
sometimes the show, it lends itself to a little bit of improv because of the audience, and because we're in a pandemic, I can't necessarily like go out there and like, you know, really fully interact with the audience. So it just kind of depends. Sometimes the audience are right along with me, and sometimes they need a little help. Sometimes it's a little help, and that's okay.
That's okay. Billy will Lady Day will lead the way. uh,
Bar feel, so
and the lighting was beautiful too. I do have to give a shout out to the lighting on this piece. When you sing "God Bless the Child" from where I was sitting, you were glistening. The light was just hitting your dress, and it was like this really cool effect from my seat anyway, which was like
I'd have been sweating. Things are not so cool.
well, you look gorgeous, and it was a glistening moment.
Thank you.
You didn't look like you were sweating. So the Actors Theater run of Lady Day was pre-pandemic, and now here we are after a 7-month hiatus of live theater. This was actually my first show back live, seeing something live. There's so much discussion right now about keeping audiences safe and keeping actors safe. So how shout out to Cape Fear. They are doing everything in their power to keep the audience safe here, which is pretty incredible because 50 people seems like, told my husband, I was like, there were 50 people in the audience that night, which is 45 more than I've been around for 6 months. There's so much discussion about keeping audiences and actors safe. How safe do you feel performing under these conditions?
I feel pretty safe. I mean, I won't say totally safe because I'm currently in closed doors, but I'm still in the middle of a pandemic. So, but I would say pretty safe. Like, we had a lot of in-depth discussions about what it was going to look like and what the ideas were as far as the setup, how the audience was going to be set up, the distance from the audience to the stage, or the stage to the audience. We had a lot of talks about everybody being required to wear a mask during the production, because it's not a long production at all. It should never run more than an hour and a half, if that. But everyone in the band wears a mask. Everyone at the sound booth wears a mask. The audience is required to keep their mask on the whole time. I will say some people might need a little mask tutorial. But no, it's because I'm the only person in the space without a mask on. So in an everyday setting, I can say, oh, that person's not wearing their mask right. Let me, make sure that my mask is on tightly and securely before I, go anywhere near them. But I have to be extra, extra careful because I'm performing and I can't say, hey, can you put your mask on, please? But overall, like, everything is sanitized. Everything is like, before it's prepped and set on stage, everybody in the building wears masks. Even through our rehearsal period, while we were in the rehearsal room, I wore a face shield anytime that I had to sing or speak. So pretty much the whole time, while everybody else wore masks. But it's been quite, they've done a really good job as far as adjusting to this new normal. And we're all learning as we go, right? So sometimes we're like, well, we thought that this would work, but now we have to, find a new way because we want everyone to be safe. And Mary Kate Burke, the artistic director, she said something that was just, I don't want to say it was sweet, but it really made me feel good. She was like, your safety is the North Star. So if there's anything that you don't feel comfortable with, we'll make some adjustments. And so I really felt, I felt loved and at home that, although she is, keeping her theater going, that she still cares about the safety and the well-being of the people that work with her.
It's really important. And I think as an audience member, I did feel like they were so in tune with the various comfort levels of people in the audience. Some people like me wanted to sit on their own like private island, and some people were very comfortable sitting together. And so they just kind of, the usher literally picked up chairs and adjusted and just wanted everybody to feel, it was very clear they wanted everybody to feel safe and comfortable so they could enjoy the show.
Yes,
And
they've done a great job at that.
um, does the audience wearing masks, does that change? You know, I always think of the give and take between artist and audience.
Mhm.
Does it change um, how reactive the audience is? Because when I saw Shrek, when I saw Memphis, the Cape Fear audiences are very verbal, and um, I don't want to say loud in a negative way, but
Right,
they
right.
are verbal.
I
They
am.
like something, they're going to say it, they're going to respond to it. I felt like the audience was a little more subdued than I'm used to seeing there. And I kind of felt like it was because we're all just taking in the new normal. So does it change how you approach the performance?
Um, I think that that definitely plays a part in it. However, for me, it's just like I also don't know the audience very well, and the content of the story isn't doesn't always lend itself to, there are funny moments and I get an amen here and again, or somebody's like, oh, I know that's right, but not as much as I used to get, when I did the show back in Charlotte. But also in Charlotte, I literally could lean on somebody's shoulder while I was walking around the bar tables. So this is just very, it's very different. So that definitely might have something to do with it. Also, people are outside, so there might be a few distractions here and there, but yeah, I definitely think that plays a role. But also just the content of the show. Sometimes I'll say a joke, and then people don't know whether it's okay to respond to the joke. Like, you can see it in their faces, like, oh, are we supposed to laugh at that? I'm not sure. Okay, maybe she's just gonna sing, So you just kind of have to roll with it. It definitely puts more of a responsibility on you as the actor to just kind of gauge where the audience is and how they're responding, what their energy level is like, so that you don't feel like you're having to pull them along. You don't feel like they're sucking energy out of you. So it's kind of a responsibility for the actor to just kind of balance it out.
Does it feel significant to be performing this piece with all its relevance in George Floyd's hometown?
Mm,
I felt kind of a weightiness of that watching it and hearing some of those songs.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's also one of the reasons, so many reasons why I wanted to do this show again, but especially in this time as far as the social unrest is concerned. But I felt like it was needed. Like, people need to hear the story, not just because she's Billie Holiday, but they need to hear about these experiences. And as I said earlier, the experiences that she had in the 30s, 40s, and 50s are some of the same experiences that people are having today in 2020. And to be doing this show in the hometown of George Floyd, knowing what that means, and knowing what that incident did to our country, to the African American and BIPOC community, like, it holds such a heavy weight. And I'm not sure a lot of people get that. I know I get it. Like, I feel it. You can't help putting yourself in this role as Billie Holiday, taking in all of, her the legend that she was, but also taking on the troubles that she had. That's weighty in itself. But to have to do that in this social climate is even heavier. And then add that to Fayetteville. And it's like, I feel like it makes it that much more powerful and meaningful.
I
Yeah.
do too. I do too. I felt a significance to the show, seeing it there, or maybe in different kind of meaning, seeing it there than I did when I saw it at Interact. Again, not to take away what Interact did. What they did was beautiful. It's one of the best productions they've done that I've seen. But there was something very significant about sitting there on the street, literally in Fayetteville, hearing police, I mean, hearing kind of sirens and like, wait a minute, are those guys in the white socks coming for you now? I'll protect you.
That might be my next improv.
So, yeah, it just there was kind of a different meaning to it. It was very meaningful. Um, I think a lot of people remember Billie Holiday as a feminist and an icon, and certainly her voice, which was so distinctive. But having lived with her a little bit by exploring this character, how do you see her, and what is her legacy?
I feel like Billie Holiday is like an auntie to me.
Mm.
Um, I've learned so much, and my view of life has changed a lot just by understanding some of her experiences. You know, as an entertainer, right? We talk about, or just thinking about what life as an entertainer costs you. It costs you time with your family. You miss holidays, you miss birthdays, you miss children being born, you miss all kinds of things, and then you have your own woes. I remember after my mom passed, I was doing a show at, my mom passed while I was in rehearsals for a show at Temple Theater. I was doing Big River. And I buried my mom, and then I came back to do the show. They didn't require me, you know, but I knew that I needed to focus on something other than my sadness, and performing and gifting my art to others was what was going to help lift me up. And that's all that Billie's story was. She had a lot of sad moments. She just had a lot of tough times. A lot of people think that, they like to say that, you know, she died as an addict and an alcoholic. And though that was a part of her life and a part of her downfall, Billie Holiday died a legend.
Mm.
Her contributions to the jazz world are priceless. And I just learned so much from her. And with all the things that she went through, she never felt sorry for herself. She accepts the bad decisions that she's made, that she made. She accepts, you know, the relationships that she had with different people in her life. She's aware of those things. Maybe naive during the time, but she gets to a point where she becomes aware of the things that happened in her life that led her to where she was. And she doesn't regret the bad moments, because she learned from some of those moments to get her to other parts in life. Now, some things she didn't learn quite so well, but but you know, some things she chose for herself, and she recognized that, you know. And it takes a strong person to really just take ownership and acknowledge the fault and the part that they played in the downfall, but still knowing that their love for the art, and it's still knowing that who they were on the inside, that is what they had to hold on to get them through.
Tiffany said on Facebook that you take on the essence of who she was so perfectly. And I think that's a good way to phrase it, because this isn't a caricature and you're not doing an impersonation of her. This is you embodying her essence. So how hard is it to play a real life person who people kind of remember, or if they don't remember, they have some image of?
In some ways, I think it's hard. In some ways, I would think maybe it's easier, because this is a person that actually existed. So you don't necessarily have to make up what I think she would sound like, or how I think she would move. You know, I have literal video references of, you know, her nuances, and her, you know, just like her physical gestures and the inflections in her voice. So I do enjoy getting to I tell her, she's like an auntie. Like I listen to her every day. It's like I call my aunt every day, listening. So, and, in a sense, I guess it's easier because you have those references. But on the other hand, it's harder because she is someone that people know. Most people know of her. Not a lot of people fully know her story. And this is her telling her whole story. Now, throughout her lifetime, Billie told some of the same stories, but she told them in different ways. So sometimes we don't know which ones are true or not, or which versions are true or not. But the point is, she loved to tell her stories, and just embodying that and implementing that throughout the entire production. So it's like you want to do her justice because there are people who, have studied her, who know who she is, who know her music, and you really want to do her justice in that way.
Mm. Well, and I think you did. Do you have a favorite song? Well, let me ask it this way. Do you have a favorite song to perform? And is it different than maybe your favorite Billie Holiday song to listen to?
Oh, that's a good question. I will say, I guess Moonlight is fun because it's really up tempo and you gotta like really just keep up with the beat. But my favorite song to perform from Billie Holiday is actually God Bless the Child. And I know it's like the one that everybody knows. But the reason I'm so connected to that song is, one, I learned that she wrote that song for her mom. And so in that moment, when she's talking about how she wrote that song for her mom, I think about my mother. So that I can feel those emotions during that time. But it was also one of the first jazz songs that I ever learned when I was younger. Yes. And I was so afraid to perform it because I grew up singing like gospel and R&B with all these like Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston influences. And I didn't really think I I thought a jazz voice was mature. So if I was like 15 or 16, I was like, I can't perform that song. And I actually missed out on a really big opportunity because I decided that I just couldn't perform. So now getting the opportunity to sing it every night in full confidence and really doing it, I feel like I am honoring Billie in that moment, and I'm also honoring my 15-year-old self who thought I would never be good enough to do that.
I love that. And I think that comes with maturity too. Yeah. I feel like Cape Fear Regional Theater is so in tune with the community in Fayetteville, and serving the community and bringing the community together through the arts. What do you think the theater's role is in helping a community heal or bringing people together during a divisive time?
Mm.
Or does the theater have a role in that? Maybe they don't, but
The theater has a role. It's not, I will say it's not their responsibility, but because we know that art is so meaningful and that art heals and it uplifts and it brings forth all the emotions that we may be lacking sometimes in our real life. In the middle of this pandemic, just everybody's turned to Netflix and streaming shows online and watching the Met and Broadway show, so it's like everybody's turned to the arts just to keep them sane. And we can't do without it. So I think the theater it's like I said, it's not their responsibility, but it's just this innate urge to want to continue to produce, just to produce, I want to say just happiness. Because people miss going, like you said, you hadn't been anywhere in 7 months. I hadn't been on a stage since February. So people miss it, and we want to definitely provide them with those opportunities in a clearly in a safe environment, which is why so many virtual things have been happening. But also the theater has the opportunity to tell stories. And I love that Cape Fear Regional Theater's motto is great stories told here. They tell stories. And we need stories to help people really not necessarily just get away from what's happening, or a lot of people might just watch a show, so I need to get my mind off of all the craziness that's happening. But you can have art that can help you get away from that, but you also need art that helps you understand it more, and to help you realize exactly what is going on in this world, and to help lead you along the path of how you can help the situation.
I definitely feel that it is a gateway to understanding and empathy. And somebody once told me in one of these interviews, it helps you flex that empathy muscle. And I love that because
I love that. Yeah.
um, with the rise up that we're seeing in theater right now, um, do you think that this is going to have an effect on the types of stories we're seeing on stage and the people who get to tell those stories?
I hope so.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me
I hope
too.
so. I hope so, because theaters are in a position, we've had all these months of really trying to pivot and readjust some of the systemic injustices that have been in our like happening in our boards and in the policies and things like that, and people not really realizing where they might have played a role in it, because in the theater world it can be pretty laid back, like it's not stuffy like the corporate world. But when you realize, okay, I might have joked or something with one of my friends and I didn't realize that that might have hurt her feelings, and maybe you didn't realize it because she didn't express it to you, but she definitely went home and cried about it or talked to somebody else about it that would understand. And so it's really about telling stories that help people have those conversations with the people around them. They need to see that they need to see stories being told that are hopeful and that are clear, not without conflict. They need to have, conflict. No story is a good story without conflict, but seeing how the conflicts are resolved. And I would love to see a lot of new works come out of this pandemic that really kind of help shift the narrative around a lot of the things that are happening in this country.
I think about often one of my favorite performers who I became a big fan of last year, Sierra Renee, um, was actually cast as Elsa in Frozen on Broadway before everything shut down. I think she played the role a few times, but then the world stopped. Um, when I think of Sierra Renee playing Elsa or you playing Mary Poppins, what does that do for all the little girls in the audience who are looking at you going, oh, yeah, I can do that? Why is representation so important?
Now, I didn't cry when I was talking about my mama, but I might cry about this, because it's so important. And I'll start with the Mary Poppins experience, to look out into that audience and to see little Black and brown girls, and even little white girls, be so amazed at this character that I was portraying, to be happy to see me doing it. And it just kind of shows the innocence of a child, and if we could all just take that on, and to see little Black and brown girls in the audience staring at me like, she looks like me. And so many people have messaged me on Instagram and said, my daughter she came back from her school field trip just raving about you, and she wants to be you, she wants to be on stage like you. And that really brings me so much joy, because when I was a little girl, now this is really personal, so you get an exclusive. When I was a little girl, I did not like being Black. I thought something was wrong with me. I was darker than my siblings. And my sister and I, we look a lot alike, but when people would see us, they would say, oh my gosh, you guys look like twins, except for you're darker. So I developed a complex about having brown skin. And I didn't want black dolls. I didn't want brown teddy bears. I wanted white dolls. I did not like my skin color. And I would see beautiful women on TV, like I mentioned Whitney Houston, and I remember seeing Brandy as Cinderella. And I really think seeing Brandy as Cinderella and Roger and Hammerstein's movie version of Cinderella, that really shifted things for me, because I was like, I guess in your mind you would think she's not supposed to be black, but she is. So maybe it was supposed to be that way all along, you know, but it took me seeing that to really even think that that was a possibility. And so for me to grow up not even liking who I was born to be, and to finally to get to a place of confidence and loving all of me, and getting to stand on a stage and look in the eyes of other little girls and see them having that same transformational thinking that I had when I was younger, it tears me to pieces. It really does. It tears me to pieces. And also to realize that for many of those little children, I was the first Mary Poppins that they ever knew. And for some of them, I'm the only Mary Poppins that they know of. But that really, like a bomb went off in my head, like, oh my gosh, some of them like don't even know who Mary, like I'm the first one they ever got to see. Can you imagine what that does to a little child's mind, you know? So I will forever be grateful for that opportunity, forever.
I love that, and I think you just said it so beautifully, and thank you for sharing that with me. I think representation is so important, and I think diverse casting, color conscious casting, whatever whatever the term is now that people,
Right.
changing, but color conscious casting, I think, just can make a narrative so much richer. Um, in stories like Mary Poppins, or I saw Bright Star last summer, and I just felt they did some color conscious casting, and I felt it made the story that much more interesting. I was like, I don't even think I would like it if the lead role was a white woman. I would just be like, okay, who cares? She's pregnant. Yay. But it's almost like upping the ante and just giving a richness and a new layer. And I
Yeah.
love that.
And I also think that it's great that in some productions, you know, a typical, you know, white character has been, you know, they've cast a person of color as that character. So that's definitely a way to see representation, but I would love to see more stories written for people of color, or more even fictional characters. You know, if it's a person of high status, make that a normal, that the black person is that person of high status and not the maid. You know what I'm saying? And so I would just love to see more works that open up a safe space, a safe creative space for new stories to be told.
Amen to that. I do too. And I hope this intermission does bring a flood of new work. I think we were starting to see it on Broadway with Slave Play, and I know that they've been nominated for a zillion Tonys, and I hope they do get recognized for the work. But Tony Stone, there was some really exciting work being done, and I just hope we continue to see that on big stages, because that'll trickle down to all of our stages.
Right.
Um, what do you hope people will get out of seeing this beautiful performance?
I hope that they will leave enlightened,
Mm.
educated, because she does share quite a few lessons. Um, And I hope that people leave feeling like they've actually met Billie Holiday,
Mm.
feeling like now when they listen to her music, they'll know more of the story behind who she was, and not just reaping the benefit of the entertainment of it all, but really understanding just the life of an entertainer and all the things, all the sacrifices that are made to be able to just create our art and to depend on it, really.
Yeah, and especially now when it's been ripped away from so many people, so many artists who are struggling right now. Wes wrote on Facebook that he worked with you on another production
Yes.
last year, and he said, I can see her telling that mean, ugly COVID, not today, Satan. And he said that you're truly a class act, and he that you bring out the best in everyone that you work with, and I'm so grateful that you spent time with me this evening, because that night I think I came to the preview performance. um I just felt like there was so much I wanted to say to you, and I just wanted to hug. I'm a hugger. I was like, I just want to hug her and just, but everyone's being socially distant and respectful. So I'm just so glad you spent this time with me, so we could talk about this beautiful show. And I'm telling you, if you are sitting on your butt in Raleigh, it is worth the drive to Fayetteville. It's a lovely evening. They will keep you safe. Um, they have hand sanitizer. Just bring your mask. Don't cough and take your mask off. And it's a great night of theater. So please go support local theater, support Fayetteville theater. And thank you, Mary Kate, for being so mindful of the audience and your performers and bringing live theater back. So thank you so much. This is awesome.
Sure.
And tomorrow night, come back and join me. One of the most fun interviews I have ever done is with the woman named Kayla Piccioni, who played I can't even think of this character's name, who starred in the Book of Mormon on tour, and she was here at DPAC. I got to interview her before that production a couple years ago. And so she'll be with me tomorrow night, and we'll be talking about fitness and a lot of the same things, because representation. The Book of Mormon is one of those shows that all of a sudden people are looking through a different lens. So I'll be very curious to talk to her about that show as well. If you tuned in late, you can watch this interview in its entirety on Facebook right after we go off the air. And you can catch it on our website, rduonstage.com, in a couple days. Thank you so much, Janetta. Good luck with the rest of the run. Just stay safe and healthy.
The plan.
And I hope to see you on stage again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren. It was a pleasure.